Most people over 40 are unknowingly sabotaging one of the most powerful cellular compounds their body makes. And the frustrating part is, they're doing everything they were told to do. They're taking their supplement, drinking their water, hitting their workouts. But the results have flatlined. The belly fat won't move. The energy disappears by early afternoon. The brain feels like it's running through fog. Recovery from a moderate workout drags on for days instead of hours. Strength is quietly slipping, and every morning feels like starting a car with a half-dead battery. If that sounds familiar, stay with me, because what I'm about to share isn't just about one supplement. It's about the cellular energy system that controls fat burning, brain function, muscle retention, and metabolic rate all at once, and why after 40, that system starts losing power in ways nobody warned you about. I'm DoctorLeana, and this is one of the most important things I'll ever explain to you. Let's start with what's actually happening inside your cells, because once you understand this, you'll never look at your energy or your body composition the same way again. Inside every one of your cells are tiny structures called mitochondria. Think of them as miniature power plants. Their entire job is to manufacture a molecule called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. ATP is the energy currency your body runs on. Your muscles use it to contract. Your brain uses it to fire signals. Your heart uses it to beat. Your immune system uses it to fight. Even the process of breaking down stored body fat requires ATP to get started. Here's what most people don't realize. Your body doesn't store very much ATP at any given moment. It constantly has to produce it on demand. And the molecule that sits at the center of that rapid production system is something your body synthesizes naturally, stores almost entirely in muscle tissue, and begins losing in measurable amounts starting around your late 30s. It's called phosphocreatine, and when your cells are fully stocked with it, they can regenerate ATP almost instantly. When levels drop, the whole system slows down. Energy becomes inconsistent, muscles fatigue faster, fat metabolism weakens, brain processing becomes sluggish. That's not a metaphor. That is the biochemistry of what aging actually feels like from the inside. Now, here's the part that genuinely frustrates me on behalf of every person over 40 who has been handed generic advice. Because there's a way to directly support and replenish this system through supplemental creatine monohydrate, one of the most extensively studied molecules in all of nutritional science, with well over 700 human clinical trials behind it. And the research keeps expanding. A 2024 narrative review in the longevity space explicitly named creatine as one of the most underutilized anti-aging compounds for adults over 40. Not for athletes, not for bodybuilders, for aging adults who want to preserve their brain, their muscle, and their metabolic function. A major Canadian university is currently running a 26-week clinical trial testing creatine supplementation in older adults experiencing early cognitive decline. This is not a gym supplement. This is a cellular energy compound. But here's the catch that almost nobody is talking about. Most people taking creatine are absorbing a fraction of what they swallow. Not because the compound doesn't work, because the conditions inside the body when they take it are almost perfectly designed to block absorption. And understanding why requires a quick look at cell biology. Creatine doesn't float freely through cell walls. There is a specific protein transporter embedded in the membrane of your muscle cells. Its entire function is to actively pull creatine from the bloodstream into the cell where it can actually be used. That transporter is sodium dependent. It literally cannot function without adequate sodium present in the fluid surrounding the cell. Without enough sodium powering that transporter, the creatine circulates in the blood, the kidneys filter it, and it gets excreted. Gone. You paid for it, you swallowed it, and you urinated it out. Now think about the average morning routine for someone trying to be health conscious. They wake up after 7 or 8 hours without water. They've been sweating through the night, exhaling moisture with every breath. Their sodium levels are at the lowest point of the entire day. They make coffee, which is mildly dehydrating. They take their creatine on an empty stomach with a single glass of plain water. And then they wonder why nothing is happening. The cell transporters are essentially non-functional in that state. The doorway is closed. A foundational study published in Acta Physiologica Scandinavica divided participants into two groups, both taking identical doses of creatine. One group took it with plain water, the other took it alongside carbohydrates, which triggered an insulin response, which in turn amplified sodium-potassium pump activity and opened the creatine transporter far more efficiently. The carbohydrate group absorbed approximately 60% more creatine into their muscle tissue than the plain water group, using the exact same dose. That study was replicated in 1998 and again in 2000, consistently confirming that the hormonal and electrolyte environment inside your body at the time of ingestion determines how much creatine actually reaches your cells. The supplement is the same. The dose is the same. The outcome is dramatically different, based entirely on conditions most people never think about. Now let's talk about why this matters for fat loss, because this is where it gets genuinely fascinating and a little misunderstood. Creatine is not a fat burner in the traditional stimulant sense. It doesn't spike your heart rate or make you sweat. For years, this led people to assume it had nothing to do with body composition. The research tells a very different story. A 2020 meta-analysis published in Nutrients examined adults aged 50 and older who were doing resistance training. The group supplementing with creatine lost significantly more fat mass than the placebo group. Same workouts, same diet. A broader 2024 meta-analysis in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research pooled 12 randomized controlled trials in adults and found that the creatine group lost on average nearly 3/4 of a kilogram more fat and reduced their body fat percentage by close to a full percentage point compared to controls doing identical training. So, what's the mechanism? 3 things are happening simultaneously. First, when your cells are generating ATP efficiently, your resting metabolic rate increases. Energized cells are metabolically expensive to maintain. They burn more calories even at rest. Depleted cells are frugal. They slow down and preserve stored fat as a precaution. Creatine is directly fueling the metabolic engine that determines how many calories you burn on a Tuesday afternoon, sitting at your desk doing nothing particularly demanding. Second, a 2015 paper published in the journal Cell out of Harvard identified what the researchers called a futile creatine cycle operating inside adipose tissue, specifically in beige and brown fat cells, which are the metabolically active fat cells your body uses to generate heat and burn energy. Creatine drives a thermogenic cycle inside these cells that causes their mitochondria to run hotter and consume more fuel. When researchers knocked out creatine availability in fat cells in mouse models, those animals gained weight and developed insulin resistance because the thermogenic regulation broke down entirely. Creatine isn't just stored in your muscles. It lives in your fat tissue too, and when it's present in adequate amounts, fat cells burn more energy. When it's absent, they don't. Third, there's a critical connection to blood sugar regulation. A study in the journal Diabetes examined what happened to a glucose transporter protein called GLUT4, the protein responsible for pulling sugar out of your bloodstream and into muscle tissue, after participants spent 2 weeks with one leg immobilized. As expected, GLUT4 expression in the immobilized leg dropped by around 20%. During the rehabilitation phase that followed, researchers split participants into creatine and placebo groups. The creatine group ended up with GLUT4 levels approximately 40% above baseline. The placebo group simply returned to normal. Better GLUT4 function means your muscles are more efficient at clearing glucose from the blood, which improves insulin sensitivity, which reduces the tendency to store excess energy as fat, which stabilizes your afternoon energy levels and eliminates those crashes that have nothing to do with willpower and everything to do with cellular biochemistry. But none of this happens if the creatine isn't getting into the cell in the first place. And most people are making multiple, simultaneous errors that guarantee poor absorption every single day. Taking creatine first thing in the morning while dehydrated from sleep, with low circulating sodium, on an empty stomach and no insulin signal. That is the worst possible combination of conditions. Taking it immediately after a hard training session or sauna exposure, when sodium and fluid have been depleted through sweat, leads to the same problem. The creatine pulls water into the gut but can't get into the cell, which causes the bloating and stomach discomfort many people blame on the compound itself. The compound isn't the problem, the delivery conditions are. Poor quality creatine with large, poorly dissolved particles makes everything worse. Grit settles at the bottom of the cup, the particles irritate the gastrointestinal lining, and absorption suffers further. And taking it inconsistently is simply wasting the entire effort, because creatine works through gradual cellular saturation over 2 to 4 weeks of daily use. It is not an acute compound like caffeine that kicks in within the hour. The fix is straightforward but specific. 5 grams daily, every single day, without exception. Taken with a real meal that contains both protein and some healthy carbohydrate, eggs, Greek yogurt with fruit, chicken, and vegetables, the modest insulin response from a normal, balanced meal is entirely sufficient to activate the sodium-potassium pump and open the creatine transporter. A 2000 follow-up study confirmed that protein combined with healthy carbohydrate hits the same insulin window as older high-sugar loading protocols, without the blood sugar crash that follows. Drink 12 to 16 ounces of high-quality water about 30 minutes before taking your creatine, not after. Use a properly micronized product that fully dissolves in cold or room temperature water without grit or residue, and ensure it has been third-party tested to confirm purity and the absence of heavy metal contamination, which is a genuine issue with a large portion of cheaper creatine on the market, most of which is manufactured without rigorous quality controls. Include adequate sodium and electrolytes in your diet, not as an extreme intervention, just seasoning your food properly with high-quality salt and maintaining baseline hydration throughout the day. If you train intensely or use a sauna regularly, rehydrate first, then take your creatine, not the other way around. Follow that protocol consistently for 14 days, and the cellular saturation begins. At 3 to 4 weeks, you will likely feel a shift in workout quality, recovery speed, and energy stability. At 6 to 8 weeks, the body composition changes become more visible, and the benefits extend well beyond the gym. A 2024 study published in Scientific Reports demonstrated that a single elevated dose of creatine measurably restored brain energy metabolism and cognitive performance during sleep deprivation. The same compound that's protecting your muscle mass from the sarcopenic loss of approximately 8% of strength per decade after 40 is also supporting your brain, your heart tissue, your immune response, and your fat metabolism simultaneously. This is not a niche compound for a specific demographic. This is a cellular energy molecule that affects every system in the aging body that matters. And the reason so many people over 40 feel like their body has stopped responding the way it used to, the stubborn fat, the inconsistent energy, the mental fog, the slow recovery, isn't laziness, isn't aging inevitability, and isn't a calorie math problem. It's a cellular energy problem. Your body cannot burn stored fat efficiently, build or maintain muscle, or sustain sharp mental function when the system that produces ATP is running below capacity. Creatine, when it actually reaches the cell, restocks that system. It charges the battery. It turns the metabolism back on. The research is there. The mechanism is understood. The only remaining variable is whether the compound you're taking is actually getting where it needs to go. And now you know exactly how to make sure it does.